and host it at a place where they can. So, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, let me try to call. So, 1 second. So today's topic is user experience design principles. And this is, as I said earlier, one of the most basic fundamentals of user experience design. So think of this user experience design principles as the engine for anything that has been created as a car or a turbo engines for jet planes, propellers. So how important engine is, that's how much important design principles are for user experience designing. I think it is underneath the hood, like how engine is not exposed. People see the experience, people feel the experience, people look at the experience. So there is look, feel, and behavior, but underneath that is the design and the research. And if we remember from the last time, we had an iceberg, and the tip of the iceberg was the user interface. And below the iceberg, under the water, was design and research, technology and science, the research part comes into where users are tested. So going to, for example, Uber guy, we talked about the example where the Uber, before he came out with the application, he went to the drivers and he asked the pain points that they are experiencing with cabs, that they call ahead or when they call and trying to have that. So once he showed, would they be using this kind of an app, if there is an app that's available that can get them cabs in a minute or a few minutes, and they can see where the cab is, that it's heading towards them, and those kind of features, when he unveiled it to them, they were excited about, yes, I would definitely use it. And he told that it's going to be more cost effective, right? So that's all is the story, user experience story. And once the story is sound, it's foundationally built like the engine. So he understood that somebody would definitely love having it's like a V6 engine, and V6 or V8 engine when the normal thing was V4 engine. So it's like, yes, there is a market for V6 engine. Yes, people want this and this. So similar to that, he figured out all the intricacies and details. And once all of that was there, it was much easier for him to go ahead and develop the solution. And it rapidly expanded. As we all know, it went into multiple countries, and venture capitalists investing in Uber, and they saw it's going to be a game changer. It's a disruption in the technology field. So, and if you take the success of any company, especially like Uber or Microsoft or Apple or any of these companies, the experience that they provide is the selling factor. So even if you go to the car manufacturers, right? So Mercedes they sell the experience of luxury cars, and same thing with Audis or BMWs, right? And then there is another experience that is sold to not the luxury, but reliable cars, Hondas and Toyotas. And these are reliable, and they are selling the experience of reliability. They are selling the experience of long running, and they are not selling the experience of luxury. It's not going to be as luxurious as high-end vehicles. So everything is in selling of an experience and the design of how that experience is going to be created. So hence, user experience design principles are the engine of user experience and the product experience and the innovation that happens in that field. So let's get started here. The reason why things needs to be innovated and the experience needs to become better and better is because of a lot of challenges that people have. Either they have a challenge of using an older system, or they do not have a system that can help them, and they have different aspects of it. So when these design principles are published as laws or design principles, these are by understanding the human mind and human brain and the evolution of the 2 million old brain that we all have, and how we have evolved slowly and steadily, understanding different patterns that people fall into, and how to avoid that in our design. And most of the times we are not wondering why is that, right? For example, something is designed over here, just over here you can see why is there this much space and all this. And we talked about this in our previous session called cognitive load and cognitive friction. If you remember about cognitive friction, what we talked about was the amount of unnecessary brain CPU cycles that everything has to be processed from the user perspective. So the user is seeing that information in front of him or her, and they are trying to decipher that information. They are trying to make patterns, and those patterns are groups, colors, shapes. All those are the patterns, and the brain has quickly evolved with that mindset that we have all built up with. Okay, this is a yellow color. Nobody says yellow color is a red color, right? I mean, unless there is a color deficiencies in their eyes, then they have color challenges, color blindness. However, when people have normal vision, once they are trained that yellow is yellow and red is red, they would not mix up that. They would definitely group colors in one space in that. So the design principles take a lot of things into consideration. So let's get into just a one slide recap of our last session. We talked about user experience and what are the desired results. The desired results of user experience was happy, satisfied, and productive users. And once we have that, that is kind of a success for the UX. And when we went into the details of the deeper meaning of user experience, we talked about this cognitive friction, about the unnecessary brain CPU cycles that are not needed to be processed. If we are making them process that, then we are introducing something called cognitive friction. And we talked about emotional friction, where once we are emotionally attached to a product or a service, then the emotional friction on that product or service is very low. For example, I talked about iPhone. I'm emotionally attached with my iPhone for last 12 years. Then it is a frictionless. So it's almost frictionless for me. All the features that it provides the accessibility features that I need for my eyes. I need to read big fonts, big text. So all the features that it had made me a big fan of iPhone and an iPad and all the iSuite, except Windows, except the operating system. And I love Windows operating system. So my attachment, so we all have biases and we all have attachments for our products and services, and we become the salesman of that product, right? So that's because emotionally less friction. So the goal of any product and any service is to reduce the friction, emotional friction to the lowest level, so there is emotional attachment. And same also physical friction. If something is very difficult physically to do on the website or on the phone, very physically challenging, then it is introducing physical friction. So once we keep track of these cognitive, physical, and emotional friction and reduce them to the lowest, then the user experience will be at the highest. So if you want the user experience to be at the level of 5 out of 5, then you want the friction to be at the lowest level possible. And as the friction is at the highest level, then the UX is at the lowest level. So it is inversely proportional. So that's a quick recap of our last session. So we talked about the human visual, we talked about how the human brain evolved, and it's in that evolution is also the visual processing. So the design principles, some of them have come from the human visual processing, understanding of how the processing happens in the human brains and the eyes. So we are going to discuss a few stages in this system. There are 3 stages. The stage, the stage 1 is eye and vision, right? And this is all the stage 1, eye, vision, and the central vision. So our eyes have the vision, and the central vision is where, when we focus on anything, that's where the central vision is trying to read anything or focusing on anything from a distance or anything. And that vision is transmitting the information. So from the eyes, the information through the optic nerves is transmitted to the brain. So information is sent to the brain, right? So this is the stage 2, and that happens subconsciously. And that's stage 2. So the stage 1 is the central vision. So, and the stage 2 is the information that is sent to the brain and the information processing happening in the brain. So in that, the stage 2 is subconscious processing. And then the stage 3 is conscious processing. So the stage 1 is as soon as you see something, you are trying, the brain is going and recognizing the patterns, the colors, the shapes, and everything. And then all this is happening subconsciously, and then your conscious interpretation overrides your subconscious, right? So central vision, giving that information to the brain, and the pre-attentive processing, it's the subconscious processing, which is also pre-attentive processing. And then the third one is the attentive processing, which is more like conscious processing. So once we understand this pre-attentive and attentive processing, most of the designs has to go into this. If people, when they do not understand user experience and the user experience design principles and the practices and the laws that are there, they are designing for all attentive processing. And if you design for the attentive processing, that means information is getting overloaded on the CPU of brain. So the CPU, once it gets overloaded, it becomes too much. The users need to have some pauses, some breaks in the information that is coming through. So hence, when a user experience designer who is experienced in designing the systems, or who has learned, like you guys are now in the business analyst roles, or or information analysts or data analysts, right? But now that you are understanding the design principles, you can understand, you can advocate in your organizations to go forward for a user experience group, or people who can do this, where they can take information into the subconscious processing. The reason why it affects is the products that are developed with subconscious processing is going to make the life of the end users much more helpful or easier. That means it will be fast, efficient, usable, experience is appreciated. They don't have to worry about where should I go, what should I do next, or how should I navigate in the system, or having pinpoint accuracy. Taking care of a lot of things are taken care of when the design is done right. So advocating for designs that are done right. So let's go to an analogy of your home, right? Your home has nice windows, a home or an apartment or any place that you are living in. It is not like boxed inside of without no light, right? So there is by law, you have to have windows, right? There is by law some things, and there is a reason for that. If not, what happens when the power goes away? You are in pitch dark, and you do not want to do that, especially when you have the layout of your home or apartment in such a way that it flows nicely. When as soon as you enter, you do not have a bathroom where you have to go around the bathroom to go to your main room or something. Or as soon as you enter, there is an element of architecture, user experience architecture also. You can call it as civil engineering architecture, but it's in the software, if you translate it, it's the user experience architecture. And the design of the apartment or the house, it's the design of the software. So similarly, the flow has to be designed, where the kitchen is going to be located, where the living rooms and where the bedrooms and the bathrooms and the backyard or front yard or the balcony, if it's an apartment or whatever it is, how much space do you have to carefully design this so people can have a good flow, right? So that are all engineered, that's all designed, where before we move to the apartment, that has been carefully architected in such a way. Same thing goes with user experience. It has to be architected and designed in such a way that there is less barriers for the users. So having been said that, it's pre-attentive processing. And stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. Central vision, pre-attentive processing, and attentive processing. So let's go to the next slide. So what happens to the central vision is it takes the information and tries to read the information. So next, I'm going to show you a few photos. And one of the photo will be not helpful for your central vision. The central vision is going to be a little bit confused. And you will see why. So this photo is what we all call blurry. The reason why that photo is blurry is because the central vision is not able to get the edges. The first thing it tries to get is the edges. Where should I stop processing this information? And here, if the information is not clear where the processing has to stop, so the central vision is fighting to give me the edges. Please give me the edges. And the blurred vision doesn't help. So this is why I think most of us have eyesight. And we need our glasses if we have a bigger eyesight. So because we are seeing everything blurry. Once we put our glasses or contact lens on, we are happy because we can see the edges and shapes. If not, it is disturbing, right? So this is what your brain wants, to process the edges first. Process the edges, then it can come back to the colors, and then it can come back to the patterns. The patterns are shapes. The shape here, there are, here you can process the shape, and without being in the color mode, you can say this shape is a shape of a human being. And these human beings are probably walking on a road, and I could see some other shapes of other human beings that are at a distance. And this shape could be a shape of a bus, but I'm not sure. I cannot tell if it is a bus or not. Uh, this shape is definitely saying it's a board of something. So when you see that, and when you combine these two images, you get a clear picture of, yes, this is what I'm looking at, a bus or shape of human beings, and boards and hoardings and all that, and then street lights and the street. So everything is now processed in the brain, right? It is processed because you identify colors, you identify shapes, you identify patterns, you identify structures, textures, and everything. So now that everything is ready, so if you think about it, it is done in not even milliseconds, it's done in microseconds and nanoseconds. So all this processing is happening in microseconds and nanoseconds because you have been built up until now to see the shapes, the colors, the textures, the identifiers, the groupings, and all that, right? You've been constant, or either you're learning from the childhood to identify these patterns and practices, and you have subconsciously already learned, and you've been developing on what you have learned. So the colors. So let's say somebody who doesn't know English, or let's say I take a 1.5-year-old, nowadays 1.5-year-old toddlers can also identify colors, right? So let's say 6 months old. You go to a 6 months old and you say, and teach them, this is yellow, and this is blue, this is white. The 6 months old will not get that, right? Because that neurological system has not yet been developed, and it takes in the first 5 years that that particular child would have learned all the colors, shapes, textures, everything in the first 5 years. And there is a research that says that what we learn in the first 5 years of our life is immense, and we cannot match that learning in next of any of the 5 years. So let's say you lived for 100 years. In the first 5 years, what you have learned is way higher compared to the next 95 years that you will still be at a lower level of comparison. It's because you are bombarded with this information, and your brain is processing all this information with the memory, and the memory is getting built up and built up and built up. And no matter what level of a person's learning is, except some learning disabilities, leaving that aside, everybody's brain is learning information day in and day out. And especially when you are in the younger ages, you are learning at a quicker pace. So when designing systems and applications to that level, so if you think about Apple's ability of designing applications and iPad and an iPhone to a level where a 2-year-old or a 1-year-old toddler can easily navigate and learn that very quickly, and also a 90-year-old senior citizen can learn it very quickly. And once they go out of their comfort zone of, I do not want to touch the devices like technology, if they are out of that touch introductory friction, then they can easily grasp, oh, it's just a click of this icon. And my dad was that. My dad was, he never wanted to touch the technology. He's like, but once I showed him how easy it was on the iPad to go and read the newspaper. So he used to ask me, hey, switch on the local newspaper. That means he wanted an Indian language newspaper. So what I did was I made a clip web clip out of it. And I said, hey, Daddy, all you have to do this is go to this icon. You just have to do this and this. And then said, oh, okay, I can do this. So he could come out of that introductory friction. And once he's out of that introductory friction, he started doing it by himself. So we all have these challenges with our senior citizens, our parents who are technology. They don't like technology that much, but once you show them the technology is not so bad, they are ready to grasp it. So this comes to for business analysts and user experience analysts and user experience designers to take that any design to make it as simple as possible that anybody can use it if we can. So in the stage of when you are looking, let's imagine you are just looking at the bottom half of this. My visual system processing will tell me that, okay, it could be an edge of a diary, it could be a black diary, right? It could be a book, it could be anything. And it is not sure, but it is guessing. It's just guessing. It could be a edge of a diary. But once I show my eyes this top image, I said, oh, that's sharp. That's like a knife. It could hurt you. So what's happening here? The amygdala in the brain that's going into like there is a brain has amygdala at the back of the brain, and that introduces panic. And the panic sets alarm. And the alarm is like, this is danger, run. Flight or flee, right? So fight or flight mode. So it is going to, and it is designed for that because of that security system, humans have evolved for so many thousands and millions of years. If we did not have that security system inbuilt, then we would have been killed by lots of dangers that we have been faced with in over centuries and millennials and millions of years, right? So that's good in one way, and it goes into that. First, this can go up to pre-attentive processing, and after that, the brain can have to the conscious processing. This can give it conscious processing, so that getting the edge and understanding that, oh, it is no longer an edge of a book, it is a knife. It is sharp, it could hurt, so I should be careful. So amygdala kicks in, and then it makes you cautious about this. So the goal, as we've been talking about, is to design in the subconscious to be it pre-attentive processing, so the users do not have to use their conscious brain power. They just have to use their subconscious memory, built-in memory, muscle memory, all that. So we need to design for that. So this is a kind of a textbook definition of design principles. In order to better understand how human perception works, Gestalt psychologists proposed a number of laws of perceptual organization, including the laws of similarity, I can't say that word, proximity, continuity, and closure. So Gestalt is this researcher and a psychologist who have given great design principles for the user experience field. And these design principles are still in use, and a lot of designers use it. Some of the designers are not familiar with it because they have organically grown into the field of design, but some designers are familiar with it, and they have taken into consideration whenever they are designing those. So one of the first ones we are going to look into is called what is called as Fitts law. And then we'll look into what's called Pareto principle and 80-20 rule. Most of you are familiar with the Pareto principle, I believe, but we can still talk on it. Hicks law.
Do for 1 second.
Sure.
I thought it was just me at first, but I think you've been cutting in and out the whole time. Like not completely off, but you're getting very quiet and back to normal, then very quiet, then back to normal.
Okay. So I think let me just try putting on my headphones and see if this helps. Give me 1 second. I'm sorry about that. Can you hear me?
Say something else.
Are you able to hear me now better?
Yes, much better.
Okay, perfect. I think I switched to the headphones, so hopefully this will help. If there is any area that we missed, do we want to go back to some of the slides or?
I mean, that's up to everybody else. We could hear you. It just was very, very quiet, and it changed so often that I think we got the gist of what you were saying, but obviously everybody else can speak up.
Okay, yes. Please feel free to interrupt me as soon as you feel a lower sound in the laptop or where my sound is not coming up correctly. But I'll try to speak a little louder, so it could be much helpful, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're good to continue.
Okay, so these design principles are going to help anything that has been designed to have a greater user experience. So few design principles that we are going to see are Fick's law, Pareto principle, Hicks law, and Jussoff's principle of proximity, continuity, closure, and figure ground principle. And let's talk about the first one, the Fick's law. What Fick's law states is the distance. It's a scientific law, what they call it as, and what it is it predicts that the time required to rapidly move to a target area is a function of the ratio between the distance to the target and the width of the target. So this is difficult to understand, whatever the textbook definition. Let me simplify it. What it is saying is the time, if you see my mouse pointer right now, and this is the target, and that this target, I know this is the target, and my mouse pointer is over here. And as soon as I move my mouse pointer from anywhere to here, it is much easier to move to the desired location if the target is having a bigger width. So yeah, with this width right now, sometimes I'm hitting or sometimes I'm missing. Right now, I miss and I hit, right? So even there is an efficiency of microseconds over here. So some of the microseconds that can be saved by having a bigger width of the target is going to help to save the time. So that is one of the reasons that you see a lot of buttons these days are bigger and they are wider, they are easy to click, they are easy to touch, they are easy to use on the mobile devices. It's because of this Fick's law that it will make it much more efficient by having a bigger width. So, and the distance, it will be much more faster. So let's see, in the Fick's law, right? For example, there is a button on the sign in button, right? And the sign in button is going to have let me show it right like this. So this is the sign in button, and if I'm anywhere on the screen on this, it's much easier and much faster for anybody to come and hit the sign up, right? Sign up button. And this is intentionally designed to save the time for the users. And it will look like for somebody like, why is it so big? And why is it so wide? And it could have been much smaller and much shorter in the width. But if you remember, 20 years ago, the buttons used to be a small buttons and small size. But nowadays, you have seen so many websites and web applications, mobile applications, all of them use bigger and wider text boxes, UI elements like buttons and everything. And it is to help the efficiency of the users. So now that we have seen that example, you can see that this, for anybody to hit this circle inside of a, let's say a download, right? Download inside of this. So let's say this is a download button, a circle download button. And you have a click me and download over here. Somebody trying to hit a download or would be much easier hitting this button on a web page or anything because it is bigger in size, and the time it takes to find something is bigger in size and wider is much less compared to the time it takes to find something that is smaller and that is very that needs pinpoint accuracy, right? So if I move from one corner to the other corner or one corner to here, it is much easier for me to hit this versus hit this. It's like anything when you're trying to put those dots, right? When the dot, it's very difficult to hit the center dot versus center in the board with the dot versus when you're hitting bigger circles, right? So that's why the Fick's law says that it's the things that are wider will have much efficiency because people can reach it much easier. So the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule, what it is nothing but the 20% of the functionality, right? Whatever you're focusing on, 80% of your users are going to use the top 20% of the functionality. And the remaining functionality of 20% is used by the remaining 80% of the functionality used by the 20%, remaining 20%. So the goal of any product or service should be this top 20% of any product or service should be absolutely excellent in the experience. So when you are asking to score out of 100, it should the top 20% of your features should score above 95, and then you are okay to have lower scores over here because this is going to be a little bit more like a busy work in the application, but it is not as crucial as these top 20%. So focusing on the top 20%, getting this absolutely right, absolutely like excellent and excellent and beyond excellence, that's when your application and is not going to be successful. So let's take, for example, iPhone. I do not use more than 20% of the features. I can guarantee say that I probably use a little bit of higher features of accessibility. Not everybody uses accessibility features. However, people who use a lot of phone features would also not be using the 100% of the functionality. So there is so much functionality built into it, but we use, so they got the top 20% right, and the rest of the 80% was making sure that they are beating their competition, making sure that they are having a feature. Because Samsung has created a feature, Apple is going to have a comparable feature introduced in the iPhone, or sometimes they will try to innovate, but the top 20% has to be must. Like we talked about in the usability, that the usability of a product, if the utility, so let's say in the iPhone itself, right? If the problem, if there is a problem with the iPhone calling, the phone feature has a problem, then people will not even like it, because the actual utility of the iPhone is the phone, and it is also a phone. It's first a phone and then everything else, right? So there was a glitch in the Apple operating system, which they corrected in a few hours. In a matter of few hours, they corrected it before anybody realized that one of the operating system versions did not have a good, has calling issues. As soon as they realized that, they fixed it immediately. But you can see how the trust is going to go down in the users when the iPhone cannot make calls, right? So they cannot afford that kind of a bug to go to the users, right? So top 20% of the functionality, along with being utility and the major functions that they are using, should be there, and the rest of the things can follow. Then the other design principle is called Hicks law. It's like the time it takes to make a decision increases when the number of choices increases and the complexity of the options increases. So imagine if you're going to buy cake mix, right? And as soon as you go to the Publix or Walmart or wherever, Target, wherever you're gone, you see the aisle of the mix. You just thought, let me get a cake mix for this weekend. And you, at that particular point, you did not decide what cake mix are you going to get. Are you going to get vanilla, strawberry, chocolate, a mix, or whatever? Once you go there, you are bombarded with 24 choices, right? So now if some of your family members don't like one of the choice, and if you say I'll get vanilla, and one of your kids I like chocolate, and then it's going to be very challenging, right? Then you have to either buy two or that. So there is research that says, like, if you provide 24 options, there is a 3% chance that people are still going to buy one of the options. But if you provide 6 options, there is 30% chances that people are going to buy one of the options. So as the number of options increases, let's say how does this apply to software, you might ask? And if you come to the user experience, and let's say you are trying to book a flight, and when you try to book a flight, as soon as you, let's say you did not have this type ahead and a smart quickly searching your city, if it did not have that feature, imagine it was a drop down of countries, state, city, and all this. But as the user experience increased, it is just one drop down right now, and you can just type in New York, and as soon as you type in NE, it will start giving you options, right? New York, Newark, and all the other options, that Netherlands or whatever it is, right? And then the more you type, the options will become less and lesser, and it will become faster. And same thing is used by Google. It is also saving you time in typing your search criteria. They keep on giving you the suggestions, and they are getting those suggestions 90% of the time right. And if you have observed that most of the time they are correctly, even they are correcting your spelling mistakes. I sometimes have issues with my spellings, and they correct my spelling mistakes. So this is amazing. So they are reducing the number of options, and they are increasing my efficiency. So that is the goal of the Hicks law, is to reduce the number of options and to increase the efficiency. So in that a physical example, we talked about the software example, right? But now let's talk about the physical, right? You see this remote control having a lot of options, and all of these options have some meaning. There is functionality for each and everything. And it was information overload. And this is what in the user experience is called as information architecture. And what happens with this information architecture is users could get confused, and there's a lot of learning curve, and there is a confusion. There is numbers sometimes repeated, and there is different challenges. How they have evolved these days. The complexity and the options are all shown over here, and now it's simplified, elegant. 3 buttons, or not more than 3, and then you still have options to go to the menu, play and pause, and select the options, and all the options are readily available in this on the screen, on the top of the TV screen or something, right? See, they did not take away the functionality. All the functionalities still exist, right? And all they did is they took the functionality and hid it in a category, or they hid it inside of a menu. So the menu will, let's say you wanted to decrease and increase the brightness of the television, right? So there is other settings. Along with the settings, there will be TV settings, and in the TV settings you go and you do the brightness and contrast or whatever it is, right? But there will be a menu of other things like channels, volume control, so many other things that are available. But everything is it is sleek, and it is information overload is not happening. So that's the goal of the Hicks law, is to reduce the number of options, not necessarily remove the options. It is not to say that you shouldn't provide 24 options when you have. So it's always, so Honda, let's say Honda has 24 options of vehicles, right? It has SUVs, it has minivans, it has cars, but it has categorized it. Okay, do you want sedan, or do you want SUV, or do you want minivans, or something like that, right? Or do you want truck, or whatever it is? So it is not going to show all the cars at one time. It's going to show the category, what they really need, and then from there it is going to show them different type of cars or different types of SUV. So that's how the UX has to be designed as well. The complexity and options are hidden only for when it is needed. So if you look at the information, we talked about this in the cognitive overload or cognitive friction in the last section. But this example, using it again, is to understand about the information can be categorized, and the information can be taken into a much more easier scale, and the options, not all options need to be shown at the one screen. Yeah, it could look like one-stop shop, one place, one stop, and you can do multiple things at one time. But an option like this would be one click away. So you still have all that information, but that is one click away from your other options. So there are navigation options at the bottom. There is sub-navigations on the middle. There is efficiency in the name and the profile information, account information, whatever it is, right? So much clearer, and the use of white space and everything. So Gestalt principle comes from the stage 2. The stage 2 is pre-attentive processing, the subconscious processing. So what it is how our brain recognizes patterns, information groupings, textures, colors, and everything, right? And then all these interpretations and perceptions comes from the stage too. So let's start looking at one of the design principles, right? And we will go into this. Our eyes have not been evolved to look at something like this. However, in the last couple of 100 years, we have started building a lot of big buildings, and there's construction things or whatever is going on, and then there's cars, there's roads, and all this. So our eyes have evolved from something like this. The material buildings, the material cars, they versus the natural trees, the natural ground, the natural mountains, the natural water, everything, the nature. We are close to the. We are from the nature. We are close to the nature, and our DNA has that, and that's why we feel very, very happy when we are close to the nature. So if you recognize this, this people are, especially this is if this is in Las Vegas, it's a desert where there is, other than the sand, there is sunlight. Those are the two things that you see close to the nature. But there's no greenery, right? But they bring greenery, and they bring the nature of like waterfalls or something. And this preference, it's called biophilia. So biophilia is preference for the biological and the green things and the water and the nature kind of thing. So when you are in this kind of a hotel, you are much more happier versus a hotel that just has rooms and windows, and then you can just see other buildings or roads versus this, right? And this is the reason why they even brought grass and trees and everything into Las Vegas, is to make sure that people are not missing the nature. So there is a principle called Savannah principle. The Savannah principle, what that Savannah principle says, that people prefer Savannah-like environments. Why? It is because they have evolved from this kind of a nature, and then also it makes them feel safe and secure. Safety is because they have a good sight and vision, that they can look at a dangerous animal coming to them, or a danger coming, or if a tree is falling on them, or if it's going to rain, or whatever is going to happen, they can quickly, the amygdala has will kick in. However, they have a lot of time for them to run for safety, for them to able to feel not threatened. So Savannah kind of principles are preferences for environments like this, and this is where the white space comes into the picture. So if you saw the other example where I showed the where I showed this one, right? The Savannah principle is the white spacing. So understanding that design principle, now we know that why do we feel comfortable is because there is a lot of white space, is because there's no confusion of information, there's no information overload, it feels safe and secure. That's why a lot of designers use a lot of white space for the preference of this thing, right? So just our simplicity principle, right? And the things, let's say if you're looking at these white, the gray boxes and the green boxes, the objects that are green look like they are together. The objects that are gray look like they are together. And you can easily say, let's say, if you are not using, if you are not designing for the colorblind people, then what you can say that all the green are the correct answers that you have given and all the grays are wrong answers. So that's easily understandable information. But when there is colorblind, then you can say this is right or check mark, and then there's a cross mark, and then you can easily design for somebody who is colorblind, then say, okay, they can rely on not just color, but also this. But the simplicity principle states that objects with shared visual characteristics are automatically taken to be related. So since these all share the same color, those objects are related because we are grouping that in our mind and in our brains that this is all green, probably these are all my correct answers and the grays are the wrong. So the design principle for Gestalt design principle of proximity. So what the design principle of proximity states that when different elements are laid out close to each other, they are perceived to be belonging to the same group. So when we are looking at this, we perceive that they are in the same group of row. Here I can see a group of 4 rows because they are closer to each other and there is a lot of distance for this. And because the proximity between this one and this one is much closer versus this one and this one. Hence, we we feel that they are like a group of a row grouping. And over here, it's opposite. We feel that they are grouped like a column, the column grouping, because they are proximity. The proximity is they're very close to each other. Proximity is very high. And now we talked about the similarity or related principle. Now, what is the confusion? The confusion is they look like they are in a column, but they have a different shape. So what does this do? This now related overrides proximity. So what happens is now these stars are looking as a row grouping and the triangles are looking as a row grouping. So rather than this as a group, we feel that the grouping is rows versus columns. Even though they are closer proximity, it doesn't matter because there is an override and the override of related. And this is the design principle of related versus proximity. And when they are both conflicting, related wins the user experience principle, because it is because that's how our visual perception and our brains like to group it. All the stars are in this group of row. So understanding these design principles will make a user experience designer create designs that are much higher in design principles, like that much higher in experience design. That means it is very natural for the human brain and human mind to understand and perceive the information, and they are trying to take it to as naturally as possible to the because they do not want conscious interpretation, they want subconscious interpretation, and this when this kind of a design has to be done, then they have gone for something like a triangle grouping to keep the same layout, but to give related more preference than proximity. Same thing over here. Related is more than proximity because a color. The challenge with this is the color blind again, right? It will look the same. It will look, however, this one, even the color blind people can understand this design versus this design, where it will not look like like a column grouping. It will look like a row grouping only for people who are non-colorblind, and people who are colorblind, it could look like a color, and which is not the intention. The intention of this designer was to imply that it's related is greater than proximity. So I have changed the color of this. So you should now be able to think like this is a row grouping. But that designer had failed to understand that this colorblind would definitely not understand this, whatever he or she has assumed to be. So this one, there's no question, everybody will get it, but this one, not everybody will get it. So, but the main thing to remember here is related overrides the proximity. Gestalt related principle overrides the Gestalt proximity principle. And same thing over here, the higher shape. Of course, this one, the designer kept the shape same, which again, he or she has successfully made sure that it is row grouping. That means because of the bigger star color and smaller star shape, sorry, bigger and smaller. It's still like a row grouping instead of a column grouping. And the violations, and this is where Gestalt's design principle comes into the picture, right? So the violations are identified easily. So human brain easily picks up a violation, and it takes a fraction of a second to pick up a violation. This is because either it is color different or it could be shape different, right? You can easily see the and as we've been talking about how the human brain has been trained for millions of years, and now for our lifetime that we have been subconsciously training our brain to identify these patterns, colors, and so violations can easily be picked up, and that's why we have errors in red color to catch the attention, and that's why we have a cross mark beside the error, a big red cross mark to get the attention. Sometimes if it is color is not conveying the meaning, then we have to get it with the text and the shape and other things, right? So this one probably will fail, will pass with normal people, but again, for colorblind, it will not work. And this one will work for almost everybody because the shape can be identified as violation difference for almost everybody. And if you introduce a shape and a color both together, it's like it's future proof. Nobody can even say there is going to be an issue at all, where this is like an orange color, like this, orange, dark orange, something like that, and a different shape. So what we are understanding now is the white space that has been introduced in our applications and the designs is great thing. It came from Savannah principle, and the violations are coming from the Gestalt design principle, the proximity and the overrides of related. They're all part of Gestalt's principles. So this one, when we look at this, what do we see? Most of us, we see a white rectangle on these four disc-looking red discs, right? However, these are not the rectangles. There is no rectangle. These are just cleverly placed 3/4 of a disc, right? When these are placed like that, the human brain assumes that there is a continuity. The continuity happens from here to here, from here to here, to here to here, and then we get a rectangle by default, right? And that's natural because our eyes have evolved like that, and our brains have started processing that from our childhood. So we feel that there is a rectangle, but it could be a designer's trick to show that there is a rectangle even though there is not a rectangle. Same thing over here. we could feel that there is a circle, sphere, where it is a cleverly placed cones on that are giving an illusion of a sphere, but there is no sphere here. It's same thing, continuity and closure, right? So the reason why we have evolved like this is, as human beings, when thousands of years ago, when we were on the forest or living without, we were becoming very efficient to see the threat, and as soon as we saw this threat, we didn't even have to wait for the contour. That if we had waited for, oh, let me see the whole contour of if it is a real leopard, cheetah, or tiger, or whatever it is, to see that, then we would have become a meal for that animal. So that's where the human brain efficiency has been built into our DNA of whatever it is, like memory, that the memory that we carry is like, we do not have to see the whole thing. We can recognize this pattern, and then we can just flee or fly away from here. So because there is a threat. If we do not do that, then it could be too late for us. So that's where continuity comes from. So designers are using that to bring a perception of continuity with this clever placing of all of these elements in the UI, because we are built in with that memory. So same thing is over here. We are using it could be a disk and two rods underneath, a green and red rod, but it could be just 4 rods or 4 lines, sticks, whatever it is, right, underneath a disk or something like that. So the visual system, again, does not assume that this pathway ends abruptly over here. It does not assume it ends abruptly over here. It assumes that it goes way beyond it. So next time when you're walking on, when you're taking a walk, or when you're jogging or running, when you're seeing pathway, just observe that, like how your natural tendency it is. The natural tendency is automatically assuming that there is a pathway, and you will run, right? Let's say this is the first time you came to this new park and you are running over here, and since this is a pathway that has been clearly created, you'll just run. You will not come here, and you will not stop here when you're running. You will assume that it is there, and you will just go on until you know there is no, until you know that that's the end. That you will go until that limit, or when your jogging is done, whatever your time limit is, right? So how is this relevant to design again, right? This is how we can bring into the day-to-day designing. So the text is nice and clear, but it fades as it goes down, and this fading is relying on this continuity principle that this is the subconscious brain, right? So this is all designing for subconscious brain to say, hey, we are not finished here. The fact that you see here, it's continuing. So you just have to scroll down without having to say anything. The designer has cleverly used the continuity principle, and the users will scroll down for more information. And you see this in LinkedIn also, right? When there is a bigger article, or in your post or anything, there is a little fading away, and show more icon is, or so show more link is displayed to see more, right? And they are using the same design principle of continuity. So over here, figure ground design principle, what it is saying is, what are we looking at here? Some will say we are looking at 2 faces looking at each other, and others will say that it is a white vase. Both answers are right. If you are looking at white vase, then you are making black as your background. And if you make white as your background, then you are looking at two faces that are looking at each other. So how is this used in today's day? It is used by modal dialogues. Most of the time, the modal dialogue is to bring attention of the users to that particular function and feature. Do not have to worry about the background. A lot of noise is going all over the background, but at this particular time, in junction of this application, all you have to do is address this modal. This modal is either asking you for the amount to pay your bill, or the amount that, or asking you for a feedback or something like that, right? And then what it wants to do is take everything which was your foreground in the previous. With the modal, it will take everything to the background, and the modal comes up as the foreground and asking you to focus your attention over there. So this is again a clever use of figure ground principle, where we know the attention span of typical users these days is much smaller, and it is good in one way that people have made them efficient with applications and mobile applications, web applications, whatever it is. However, if the application is challenging to work with, then it is going to be frustrating for the user. So using a figure ground principle, again, not using too much of modals, right? So if you use too much of modals, then it feels like every time you have to click something and a modal opens, and every time you have to click something else. So it is a balance where you have to make the main application as the background and bring the modal as a foreground. So understanding figure ground will help you. The design is always a balance of right mixture of right principles at the right time, so that it doesn't become overwhelming, it doesn't become repetitive, it doesn't become too complex, and it doesn't become inconsistent. There should be consistency, but all the modal dialogue should open up the same way. One modal coming from the left side, the other modal coming from the right side, top and the bottom, and the other modal coming from the center. Then you are confusing the users, and nobody likes that, and we don't see that often. So here, if I ask you, I'll be showing you three photos, 2 seconds each. In these photos, I will ask you to see one of the devices. So how many, I'll be showing you three, how many of them will have scissors, right? So the first one, second one, third one. How many of them have scissors? Right? So the answer is 2. Yes, it is correct answer, but actually the question is wrong. The question is how many of them have paint rollers? This one. And most of us have not paid attention to the paint rollers, and all the three of them have paint rollers. The reason is inattentional blindness. So what we can cause with the design is we can lead a user to have a tunnel vision. That means the tunnel vision is for something that they are specifically looking for. So when I said scissors, all your attention went on the scissors, and the scissors was at the center here. And when it was not at the center, you said, okay, this one doesn't have it. But you were not paying attention to the paint rollers on the left one. And the third one has the scissors. So this inattentional blindness, the way it is used is to get the focus and attention of the users to focus on what things that are necessary. So there are 9, 10 objects over here, but what is most important over here, when I said pay attention to scissors, you paid attention there. So same thing, but on the websites, nobody is guiding you. On the websites, on web applications, mobile apps, or iPad apps, whatever it is, right? We are designing. We have to make sure that there is an attention that is available. So that's one of the reasons the top attention goes over here. That's one of the reasons most of the logos are designed over here. When somebody is placing a logo here, then they are going against the convention. And the going against the convention is you have to place something else over here when your logo over here. But most of them, somebody who has failed has learned that I should never place my logo on the right top corner. It should be always at the left top corner. So, and then the attention goes over here, right? So it's almost, the attention span goes from the left top to the center and then it fades away. I mean, you can try to grab some attention over here if there is something catchy. So to make something catchy, they gave some background of this color. So then the attention went over here, but the attention is 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. It goes almost like that. And even when you pay attention now to when you're reading, you are reading in that fashion. And this comes from also not only inattentional blindness, which is one of the design principles, but also it is Gutenberg diagram, which is when you have the 4 quadrants, this is the first quadrant and the fourth quadrant are the highly used quadrants. That's where you see save buttons and other things, cancel buttons over on the right side and the information processing on this side. And less useful information is placed on this side, because you cannot ask a user to focus on all of the 4 quadrants at one time. No, right? So it is better to lead them into the focus direction like this, how Amazon is leading. And Amazon makes sure that when you have bought something, it gives you something else is available for you to buy, and it will give you suggestions, and it will give you offers and all the stuff. But they have carefully calculated all this, right? They have tested all different scenarios of placing this one over here, placing this over at the bottom, scroll down or something. But most of the time, that's how it is followed. So we have looked on the design principles, but there are other ones that are available, which are difficult to cover everything in one session. But when you look at the interaction design, a foundation, they say design principles should be categorized into 4 different things. One is the proximity design principle, which we have been looking and talking around. And then there are hierarchy. And when there is a hierarchy, the information has to flow through the hierarchy of this being the number 1, number 2, probably number 3 and number 4, the hierarchy of balance, and then balancing. So when an application is not balanced, you could see the out of balance, and it will show it is done by somebody who has no experience or somebody who has just bootstrapped it without having anything understanding of the design. So when the applications are elegant, designed in such a way, it is balanced on the content, it's balanced on the information, it's balanced on the hierarchy, it's balanced on the colors, the contrast, it's balanced on everything. So that's one of the major things also to keep in mind. So to do this, it is needed to have people, right? Especially if your organization is looking to expand into different products and services, and until now you do not have a UX team. Now, you having this knowledge could be one of the founding members of the UX team, and you can ask or suggest your employer or organization that, hey, we should have some process for design, and we should also have some designers or people who understand the design from the ground up, and the catering to the user experience. And then we use technologies and different processes, technologies like user testing and usability testing, and creating wireframes, prototypes, mockups, pilot applications, sketches, and all of that, and having user research done and making sure that everything is catered as expected. So just mentioned about the sketch, wireframes, prototypes. So what happens is, we on the first initial stages, when the idea is in the ideation stage, you can just draw something even on the paper or a pen, or mock up something in something called balsamic, like drop downs, text boxes, and other things. They are called low fidelity mockups, right? And you can sketch something. And then once the ideation, you go into the concept validation, you talk to the user stakeholders and say, hey, is this what we are envisioning? Is this what we are talking about? And that you can go into the moderate fidelity at that point. You can take into PowerPoint slides, and you can create some wireframes. And then from there, you go into the prototyping, and then you refine into the much more narrower. So as you see, the broader perspective has been narrowing down slowly and steadily, and with the prototype. And once we do the usability and user testing with the high fidelity prototype, this is now much narrower. The scope is much clearly defined, and the design can clearly evolve and help your organization get better and better. So the goal is always to make it easy. It is not easy to make it easy. We all know that, and it is very challenging sometimes. However, it is definitely possible when you understand the design considerations, when you understand the requirements, when you analyze. And you being from International Institute of Business Analysts, you guys know about how clearly a requirement, a user story should be, how much refinement it has to go through, what level of acceptance criteria that it should have, and if there are mockups, and if there is user interface and user experience related to it, can you predefine that before the development team comes into the picture and starts developing it? And can the user experience designer and the business analyst, right? So now the challenge is, not every company is going on will have the luxury having a business analyst and the user experience designers teams. Nowadays, companies have tried to figure out a better way to do this, and they are merging some roles. My wife works for JP Morgan Chase, and she says that Chase has been experimenting on something they call as T-shaped developers. A T-shaped developer means a developer who can do a little bit of business requirements at the same time develop and at the same time test. Or like, it's very challenging to hear that. We've been in this industry for a long time, and we've either know that there is business analysts, or there is QA analysts, and there is developers or software engineers, right? And now trying to mix these three roles into one. They are trying to say that for a small project, I might not need a business analyst. I might not need a QA person. Can a developer do this both, right? So, and if a company like Chase, which is in the top 25 companies in the Fortune 500, is trying to do this, or trying to experiment with this, then this talks to the state of how not just having business analyst skill set, I would also have a user experience design skill set, and then a little bit of product ownership skill set and Scrum Master skill set, right? So user experience team, or a designer, or anybody doing user experience, the challenge is definitely there's going to be friction depending on how big your organization is. Your development team is going to give you a friction. Your project management team can give you friction, and there is going, because they are talking about the timelines, they are talking about deliverables, and your team is trying to test with the users, validate with these requirements, and make sure that everything is in a way that it works better. So you are it's not just you or I was in this situation. I was at Raymond James Financial in a UX team, and I was a UI architect and UI engineer who was prototyping this with. In the UX team, I was working with the UX professionals there, and we encountered a lot of problems, a lot of challenges, because there were a lot of development teams, and they had a lot of challenges that whatever we have mocked up and wireframes that we have came up with, they kept on challenging, and they kept the deadlines were not met, and the blame comes onto the user experience team. So after being there, done that, we always found a middle ground to work with the designers, to work with work with the development teams, to work with other teams, any other team. It is a tough shoes to be in. However, the great thing that our UX team had was me having as a person who knows, who understands the user experience design, and all the knowledge and wisdom that I've gained from the UX designers, and being a software engineer myself. And I was able to create prototypes. So there were wireframes that we gave them, and they were challenging. This cannot be done. There is technology, with the technology skill set we have, we cannot do this. Then I used to sit down and create a prototype, a functional prototype that they can literally take the code and create it on their application. So once we started giving them functioning code, that's when the trust started building, because when they saw the designs, even though it looked simple from the front end, it was complex from them for designing, because they were using controls like Infragistics, Telerex, and there were UI components that have been used. So we failed, and we tried to work much harder. We had a lot of obstacles. Then we failed again. We crashed multiple times. We kept on going, and after a while, after years of working, from 2006 to 2000, after a few years, it gained the traction, and it gained the momentum that it was there. But again, of course, in organizations, reorg happens and everything. That function was outsourced or something happened. So what I'm trying to say is, it took us to 3-member team to gain the trust and to be able to work with the 300 members organization. So it took us a lot of time to build that, and because we had to work case by case, individual by individual basis. And the reason why was we were laying the foundation, and we were building up libraries, we were building up components, we were building up prototypes, we were building up design patterns and challenges. So if you are not in that kind of an organization, then you are much better off, right? So first, either you are not interested, right, then how to go to the next level of in the organization, bring the interest over there, where they think, yes, UX is important, and then but they do not have funding, right? Then you need to take them to the next level, invest it. The UX is key, important, and it's formalized in that. So we took them to here, and I think we even took them to the committed state where UX is critical, and executives have actively, yes, we took them from ground zero to 4, and engage. UX is one of the facets and the organization strategy. So this is where were getting engaged, and that's when a major reorg happened and the whole thing dismantled. So it got outsourced as a function from a design agency or a company. So, but do not expect that it will be embedded or it will be engaged right away. It has to be built up. And if your organization doesn't have it, take this opportunity, do take it to the next level, because this is going to enhance your skill set and learning and growing in the field. Along with business analysts, if I have seen great business analysts. I have seen great designers, great, excellent designers, and I haven't seen a combination of a person who is excellent at business analyst and UX designer at the same time. And it can be done, because once you have already got skills. So I have currently, for my day-to-day work, I still do coding, but I'm so much enthusiastic in the field of UI, UX, and accessibility, and I've been sharing all these meetings and creating courses and everything like that. It is because I want to be able to bring developers and designers together and have such a friendly relationship that we will all evolve together, and the UX team can evolve in this direction and become embedded to the stage. So we talked about what the UX success, right? So to exactly talk about what the success looks like is easy to use, right? Of course, improves the people experience and a person's experience, or a professional, whoever is using the application. It helps them with what they want, right? And then improve performance from okay to excellent, integrated and secure, but not overwhelming, right? So sometimes, last time we talked about security, user experience, and performance are all the three major considerations for me. If the security is not there, then the user experience is also going to suffer. People are going to lose trust on the software or anything. So security is very important. Performance, if the application is too slow, taking 30 seconds to do anything, then it is not, it needs to save time, right? It needs to be performing very well, and it needs to have value delivered, and it's innovative and intuitive. It should be easy, as quick, easy install setups and upgrades. So you can take Zoom as an example, right? So if you take Zoom, it is doing all of this. It's easy to use. It's helping us doing this, and it's we are not seeing any latency, any lags in those, and it's delivering value, everything. So, and it's easy to install. Once you install, setup and upgrades are easy. So that's one of the reasons Zoom went from, which we are now using, went from 10 million users to 200 plus million users, and growing day by day, each day. Even. So that's a tremendous growth in last 6 months, especially with the COVID, it's been more. Last but not least, why I kept it big font is accessibility. Accessibility is a big topic, and it is definitely for some other day, and it needs to be accessible. So we've been, throughout today's session, we've been talking about colorblind. It's only to get your focus on accessibility, that we have to not just think about regular people, but also people who have accessibility needs, including people like me. I am a low vision person, if I mentioned or not last time, but I have a macular degeneration kind of thing, dystrophy. So I am a 20 by 200. I'm a legally blind person, 20 by 200. No more correction of lens. So there's no cure for what I have, but that's reasons why I'm heavily passionate about advocating for accessibility. And even my text, as you have seen, lots of text are bigger and easier to read. So just an FYI for your information, I have some of the material is covered. We have helped here, but if somebody is interested, or if somebody of your friends or colleagues or anybody who's looking and they don't know what they're doing. I take somebody from level zero to a level where they are confident on becoming a UX designer. I take them not just the differentiation what is available in the marketplace is they just give UX design courses out there, but not many people go into accessibility because it doesn't there's not a they think there is not a big market for that accessibility, right? So but there are companies that does accessibility for living and they have courses for accessibility, but nobody combined UI UX and accessibility everything all together in a 16-hour crash intensive course. Like, have you ever heard this intensive course? And I have done that, and I also give some hours of mentoring for free and practicing on real life projects that I'm doing. So here is the URL, uiux.floralms.com. And if you're referring it to somebody, they can take the first session for free, half of the session, and then everything else. And they can leave it anytime. They can only buy one session and they can leave the whole course if they think it's not for them. If they bought one and they said, okay, this is not for me, then they are not wasting any more money after that. So that means they don't have to pay the whole, every module is by its own price. So once you get into the module, you get into the details, and then it talks about what the module covers and the description and everything. And these are the LinkedIn testimonials of people who have been to my session and what they have learned, and they have been very happy with what knowledge that they have gained so far. Any questions? Yeah, if nobody has questions, I have an interesting project I'm working on. It is like a side project that we would. It is more like a new company. It's not even a company. There are few of us, like including me. There are 8 of us, and I initiated this product. Nothing like this exists in the marketplace. Talking to one of the agents, and we are envisioning, we are in the early stages of designing the screens, and we are creating this product. And this idea has never been there. So the way we are creating, and I would like to say what we are trying to form is an LLC, a partnership. And then what we are trying to do is have a flat organization in terms of compensation structure, right? In terms of something like right now, we do not have venture capitalists or angel investors funding us yet, but maybe in future. But the way we are calculating everything is everybody's 1 hour is going to be 60 shares. And we are carefully keeping track of how much everybody is working, and even a meeting will be counted for 60 shares. So we all build in. So even though I'll be the founder and CEO of this organization, but the structure is so flat that a design intern who is joining this organization, if that design intern works 2,000 hours and I work 800 hours, then the design intern is going to be higher paid than me, the CEO of this organization, because I feel that it is the effort of each hour for each person who is working for a company could be fairly compensated. And when it took a lot of thinking on my side to like, is this acceptable in this industry? It's like, why? I said, why it is not? Because if I am ready to lose the share of having 51% of the company to have voting rights or all that stuff, it doesn't matter for me. For me, it matters to catering to the delivering user experience, catering to the users and delivering the experiences that are immersive and innovative solutions for the business challenges. And if I'm doing that, I do not, right now, of course, we are not millionaires, but when that product can be sold and that product is bought by a bigger company, everybody can become a millionaire, whoever has worked in this and produced some output. And we definitely have business analyst requirements. We have other areas of development and other things that we are trying to get out of the ground, but we are trying to also do the user testing at the same time. We are going to talk to the agents, and we are going to show them the prototypes, and we are going to see if it's going to work in the marketplace. So this is like a project that we don't know if it's going to be successful or not, but we are all taking our risks by our time and energy that we are going to put in an open fashion of clearly tracking. Everybody can see whoever is working how many hours, and the shares are automatically getting calculated. When this company is going to be evaluated, let's say a few years down the road, we can easily say this is the reason why it is at X million dollars of value, let's say $25 million, and this is the reason. And here's the tracking from the day one. We'll go from there. We will see how it goes. But yeah, I just wanted to open up if anybody is interested in joining our team of 8 people. But it is we all are having jobs, and one of them is working full time, but since she's looking for an opportunity, but we all understand there is no pressure of time, there is no pressure of deadlines. We only have lifeline in our team, and the hierarchy is only present for a little bit of decision making, but compensation wise, everybody is 60 shares per hour. Thanks. Any questions?
Thank you for that presentation. That was really interesting. I've not ever heard of these different principles before, so I learned a lot.
Yep, perfect. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
And thank you everybody for coming. We appreciate your time. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Good night.